Hello and welcome back to the channel, Cali Legends Media. Okay, so as you can see by the thumbnail, we're going to be touching on a subject today that we don't usually talk about. But the reason why I'm going to be talking about this situation, and especially these two inmates that are incarcerated right now, is because they've came on social media themselves, gave their names, told their stories, and I'm just going to elaborate on those stories a little bit. So before any of you try to attack me and say I shouldn't be speaking on this or that, this is stuff that's been spoken on by them themselves, and all I'm going to do is add a little bit to it as far as putting the stories together and driving home the point of everything that took place during the hunger strikes and the reintegration of these men coming out of that Pelican Bay, part of the institution of the whole, and put back into the main population. Now, the end of hostilities was no easy thing to pull off. That was a big dream, a big plan of action to undertake. So it took very smart men with good minds to put this together and make it something that they could all agree upon and something they could all live with. Okay, so they had to go as far as doing a hunger strike, as everybody knows. And this hunger strike, I'm going to say, went viral. And what I mean by that is that it wasn't only the inmates in California that did the hunger strike. There were inmates from other prisons in different countries that went on hunger strike with them to show their support. You know, they did the damn thing with these gentlemen in Pelican Bay. And as everybody can see, they were able to get some notoriety on their cause. So much so that they changed the law about indeterminate sentencing, which means locking somebody up in the back, in the hole, for an undetermined amount of time. In other words, you don't have a release date. And they pretty much made it the only way you could get out of there is by debriefing or finishing your time or going out in a box. Okay. And I know for a fact that the men back there went through a lot of changes, you know, without the human contact that they were used to, without being able to look outside, you know, just to see anything, you know, the sun, maybe some birds flying by, you know. It was all closed off. Even their yard was just a little hard yard where they had to go and walk around in circles. Anyways, these men came together, something that had never been done in the Department of Corrections. Now, long time ago, before probably most of my viewers were even born, or we were very little, there was a man. His last name was Cardenas, and Cardenas wanted to meet with the guys from up north and essentially end hostilities, okay, and function together. So his vision was ruined by some different actions, you know, that had a domino effect, and even he himself got unalived by guys from up north. And so this ended all thoughts of doing anything of the sort, you know, as far as getting together with anybody. And then, of course, we had the shoe war that just continued for years and years. And then other things happened along the way where it was an all-out war between the North and the South. And then you had the other conflicts, you know, with the whites and the Mexicans and the blacks, the Mexicans from the South and the blacks, and the blacks and the whites, and all of these conflicts going on. Okay, so this end of hostilities put an end to all that. Yet you've seen a lot of unaliving going on throughout the Department of Corrections. And I think a big part of that is because of the media. You know, the media focused in on this, and all of a sudden they're displaying and putting every and social media putting every unaliving, you know, out on front. We even have Hector Bravo having a calendar, like a count of people that are getting unalived throughout the Department of Corrections. Well, that's been going on since the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. That's just been prison, you know. I don't know the statistics. I got to look into it as far as the increase, if there was an increase, because I really believe that a lot of it has to do with just it being plastered on social media for other reasons, okay? Along with the reason to show, oh, you let these guys out, now look what's happening. No, it's been happening. That's been going on. Anyways, we have this gentleman by the name of Two Scoops. I'm going to say his name, and still I'm not going to say who he's connected to, because although he says it, that's up to him to mention. I don't want to mention any of those organizations, but he's from one of the strongest white organizations in the Department of Corrections in California. And then you have Turtle, who represents another faction who's Mexican. And they both mentioned something about these hunger strikes and this end of hostilities. I'm going to start with Two Scoops, okay? He mentioned that one day the inmates in his pod, they were all playing pinochle and cards, and you know, everybody was communicating. Blacks, north, south, the whites, everybody, you know, they're all you know, communicating in the pod, and they're having fun. You know, they're probably getting their drink on, and they're partying, right? And the correction officers didn't like that. They went even as far as going to the other pods and letting the inmates know, hey man, these guys, they're going to be in trouble. They're doing this and that over there. And, you know, the big dogs are upset with them, and, you know, somebody better get it on town to cool their jets and this and that, you know, trying to nip it in the bud, you know, and throw a wrench in the whole example that these men were setting, and the precedents that this was setting, right? So that kind of shows me that the Department of Corrections wasn't really good with the idea of all of these inmates getting along. You know, divided, they're not as strong, because they're easier to control in small groups. But the coming together of the inmates in this kind of way puts them in a much dangerous situation, because if they were to do something and hurt an inmate that's handcuffed and you know, unfairly being stomped out or something, you never know, man. You know, friendships are going to be made, and you don't know what color man's going to jump to help you, you know, if you're their friend, and you know, you've spent years with them doing time and have a rapport with them, and consider them a friend and an ally. You know, it's different than before the end of hostilities, where, hey, you can't get involved with that. You know, that's third thing. You know, things have changed, and I'm sure the police felt a little bit weaker by them coming together. You know, it kind of weakened their position, I believe. And and then you go to what Turtle said when he was being interviewed, and he said on the yard, okay, not in a pod, but on the yard that he's on, uh, the blacks play against the Mexicans, and they were even going to go as far as mixing black and Mexicans on one team, blacks and whites and Mexicans on another team, and just mix whatever. In other words, it don't matter if you're black, Mexican, or white. If you want to play football, come on, let's go. Let's pick teams. We'll divide regardless of race or regardless of affiliation, and play football, play basketball against one another. You know, all of these things. And if you think about it, that was Cardenas' vision. You know, kind of what he was seeing. You know, now you have the North and the South that aren't going at each other's throat, which brings a whole other list of benefits that I'm not even going to get into because this video is already going into 12 minutes. But you know, there's other benefits to that peace treaty, to that end of hostilities. You know, and I guess people think that, oh, well, as soon as they let those guys out, all this stuff's been, you know, started happening, and all this unaliving, and they're probably cleaning house, and they're probably doing that. All that happened was a continuation of what has always been going on. The house was always being cleaned. Periodically, it need more cleaning than other times, you know, and that's just the nature of the beast, you know. Sometimes you have a lot of people on there with dirtbag charges or snitch charges or whatever, you know, violations that they've made against the convict code. And people might say, right now that I mentioned that, or think, well, that's the convict code. Who cares about the convict code? Well, in that world, the convict code is the way you live. It's there to keep things and people in line and in order, you know. The level of respect is much higher than it is out here in the street. In fact, it doesn't compare. You know what I mean? Out here, there's so much disrespect between races, between different factions of Mexicans, between factions of black. We don't have no example that you could give me as far as coming together of people and end of hostilities out here. Although it would benefit us the same out here as it did them in there, you know, ending all of this nonsense between North and South. You know, there's money to be made, you know, and maybe with the youngsters with their rap game, with shows, parties that could be thrown, big events, you know, it'd be crazy. It'd be big money. But like Cardenas, nobody really shares the vision of the few, of the minority, you know, that can see this, you know, happening and being a benefit. You know, it's a terrible thing. I don't think I'll be alive to see any of the transformation of what's going on out here. I hope I will. It would be a blessed day. I'm glad I seen it take place inside the Department of Corrections. I think it was a noble move, and took a lot of honor, a lot of intelligence, man, to make the end of hostilities happen, and even more so to keep it going and overcome the obstacles that they've encountered along the way. And they've all managed to do it, and everybody seems to be holding their place and keeping everything in order to where, look at Turtle, man. He's got everybody getting along on the yard, man, playing sports. And I'm sure there's conflicts and issues that come out, and they figured a way to work that, you know. And I mean, I could have never have imagined something like that happening, you know, on the scale that it took place on here in California and throughout the Department of Corrections, you know. These are very, very powerful organizations and leaders. I mean, powerful, very powerful. people. If you don't know it, believe it. Uh, and yet they could come together for peace and come together what would benefit the majority and the people. You know. Anyways, I want to give my props to those people, to Two Scoops for coming out and speaking his on social media, and for Turtle for sharing what he's doing there on the yard with the people. I mean, that's huge, man. To have people in good standing come out and give positive messages and share with us their experience of going through this hunger strike and the opposition that they came up against and everything from their own mouth. If you haven't seen their videos, go and check them out. I'm going to try to find them again, and I'm going to put them in the description section so you guys could see them for yourselves. Yeah, they're pretty powerful videos, the two videos that I'm talking about. One from Two Scoops and the other one from Turtle. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. I hope that it helps generate some thoughts, hopefully positive more than negative. But you let me know in the comment section what you think, what you truly believe, and all I ask is that you just keep it respectful. You can say anything you want, but just keep it on a respectful level. That's all I ask. Thank you for watching, people. Regardless, end of hostilities or no end of hostilities, stay out from behind the wall. It's a difficult way of life. Nothing compared to your freedom, being around your family, friends, loved ones, and doing the things you want to do when you want to do them. So stay free, people. God bless you. God bless your families. And hope to see you on the next video. Thank you very much. Don't forget to hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and just hit that subscribe button. Set your notification bell on all so you'll be notified whenever a video drops. If you're already subscribed and you're not getting the videos, you're not getting the notifications, unsubscribe and resubscribe, and that should fix that. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you on the next one.